Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good evening. So nice to see folks coming in. Hello, hello, as folks are entering. We're so excited to have you tonight. There it goes. Awesome. So exciting. Wow. While we wait, we're just going to wait a few minutes to let folks file in. I'm curious if you could let us know in the chat, where are you coming from? Are you from the East Bay? Whereabouts? Maybe what schools you're coming from if you want to share. I know that spring break is coming up for a lot of districts, so let us know if you're excited for a little break from school. And yeah, say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. There's our chat. Hello, hello. Awesome. We got Berkeley. We got Oakland.
Yay, I'm Oakland too. Hi, everybody. Hi, students from all over, families tuning in to our Scientific Adventures for Girls STEAM Night. If you know what STEAM stands for, oh my gosh, look at all these people from all across the Bay Area.
Wow.
If you know what STEAM stands for, type it in the chat. I want to see if there are any bright students out there who know what STEAM stands for. Science. Good job, Patrick. Who knows what the T is all about? Technology. Very good. If you can't hear, try turning on the volume of your Zoom screening. Welcome, everybody. We're just exploring yes, engineering, good, art, nice job, and math. Way to go, Riley. Good job, Lauren. Thanks for participating, everybody.
So awesome to see everybody. All right. Anybody have an exciting dinner they care to share? We have one more minute before we're going to get started formally. Welcome, welcome.
We're going to have mushroom burgers in our household.
Ooh, that sounds really good. What am I going to have for dinner? Ooh, tacos. Nice.
You know what, Ms. Joe, I can't participate in the chat and I'm feeling left out.
Oh, no. Okay, let me see. Actually,
is there a way that we can, as our panelists, that we can type in answers to our friends?
I'll go ahead and fix that.
Thank you, Giselle. Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. Cool.
No
we'll get that fixed. All right. Just a little bit more time, and then we'll jump right in. Ooh, ham and mini sandwiches. I love mini sandwiches. Small ham and cheese Sammys. I love that. San Jose. Shout out to San Jose. Cool. Noodles. Nice.
Ooh, I'm from San Jose. Definite shout out.
Nice. Awesome. Washington Elementary. Cool.
Way to go.
Elemental. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and jump in. It's 5:33. Welcome, welcome to our Science is Elemental Virtual Family STEAM Night. This event is hosted by Scientific Adventures for Girls in partnership with Pixar Animation Studios and Sandia Laboratories. My name is Miss Joe, and I'm a lead teacher and a program coordinator at SAFG. And we are a nonprofit that provides after-school science programs to TK through 6th grade children to increase positive attitudes towards STEM, offer hands-on learning opportunities, and encourage lifelong learning of STEM subjects.
And you've noticed that we like to put the A in STEM because Pixar is the convergence of art with all of the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics subjects. So my name is Emily Davis. Or you can call me Miss Emily, and I'm a feature film department manager at Pixar Animation Studios. That means that I lead teams of movie makers. I keep them informed and motivated. I help them track their homework assignments and make sure they get their work done on time. It's a privilege to be here with all of you tonight. I get to introduce you to my colleagues, the special guests from Pixar, starting with my colleague, Grace.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everybody. My name is Grace, and I am a software engineer at Pixar Animation Studios, which means that I build tools on the computer to help support our artists. It's kind of like my job is to help build a world on Minecraft for the animators' characters to live in. Pixar's Women in Technology group, we call it PIX-WIT. Our mission is to help inspire and foster interest in STEAM.
Awesome. Thanks, Grace. So the theme for tonight's event, playing off of Disney Pixar's summer release of 2023's Elemental, is science is elemental. So the theme colors tonight are red and blue, as you can see, inspired by characters Ember and Wade, and we'll be making colorful chemistry creations to go with our theme. So to get started, we're curious, who has already seen Elemental? Maybe you saw it in theaters last year, or maybe saw it on Disney Plus at home. Feel free to let us know in the chat. And as a reminder, you can continue to use the chat function in the webinar to chat with us panelists and the rest of the attendees, so everybody can see what you got going on in the chat, unless you do a targeted message to one of us. And so since this is a webinar, we can't see your wonderful faces or hear your voices tonight, but we're so excited that you're here. And also remember that we all have tricky internet sometimes. And so if your video starts to slow down or glitch a little bit, just try your best to be patient, take a deep breath, because the great news is that this event is being recorded. And so it's going to be on YouTube in the next couple of weeks. So you can always go back, revisit, and check it out again if you missed something. Okay, so if you have questions during the event on whatever's going on, you can use either the Q&A feature or the chat at any time, and we'll do our best to get to your question. And tonight we'll be guiding our kiddos in a series of interactive science activities with some simple supplies. So in case you did not receive one of our 100 mailed kits with supplies, we're going to be posting the materials in the chat. And so those will pop up shortly. And they're both in English and in Spanish, and those will get repeated before the activities as well. And if you'd like captions to be in another language for this event, you can click on the bottom menu on your screen. There's a show captions button. You'll click on that. You'll select translation, and then you'll select the language that you'd like to be translated into. So SAFG puts on a number of these virtual family events every year. And so in order to keep making these events for everybody, it's super helpful to get input from you, from the adults and from the kids who are participating. And so throughout the night, we're going to be asking the adults in the audience to participate in 3 different polls. And they're super short, I promise, throughout the event. So please stick around and keep an ear out for your call to action on those. And that data is really helpful for us. So thank you in advance for your participation. It really does help us to continue on with this program.
Awesome. Thank you, Jo. And if you received a kit in the mail before tonight's event, go ahead and grab it now and get ready to follow along. Our Science is Elemental event will last about 1 hour. At the end of the night, we'll be raffling off several exciting prizes. However, you must be present at the time of the raffle to win. So make sure you stick around until the end of the event.
In just a minute, we're going to be sending out our first poll. So adults, this is where we need your help to take that poll for you and your household members. So in the poll, you'll just answer a few questions that will let us know more about who is joining us tonight. So the poll is going to pop up on your screen. We'll give you just 1 to 2 minutes to fill out the 3 questions for you and your family. Just fill them out as best as you can and then press submit. Thank you so much.
Yes, and if you're busy filling out the poll, maybe your kids at home can start to think about their favorite Pixar movies. Sometimes people get confused. What did Pixar make? What did Disney make? What's made by other animated studios? But if you can think of a Pixar movie that you've seen recently and you know it's your favorite standout, I'd love to hear about it in the chat. I started to work at Pixar in 2008, and the first movie I got to work on was Up. And since then, I've worked on a series. Ooh, look at all the Soul love. Soul's beautiful. Did anybody see Soul when it came out in theaters again recently? And currently Luca is out in theaters. If you didn't get a chance to see that over the pandemic. Toy Story, Elemental, Inside Out, Monsters, Inc. Yes. Toy Story 4. Fun fact about Toy Story 4. I am the voice of Billy Goat and Gruff. The 3-headed sheep. That's me. Bah! That's me. You just heard it. My famous line.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily.
My pleasure. My claim to fame. Inside Out, yes.
Thank you so much for taking our first poll. I think we probably are good on that one. So thank you so much. Giselle, let me know if maybe if you want to let me know when polls are good, and then I can move on from those. Okay, as a reminder, we're going to have 2 more later for you to take, similarly short, I promise. So before we do our hands-on activities of the night, our first item on the agenda is meeting some of the incredible women in technology who make movie magic at Pixar. So to get things started, I'll send it back to Emily, who's going to be introducing our special Pixar guests.
Hooray! Like I mentioned before, this is one of my favorite things I get to do is show off the people that I get to work with. So we're going to share with you some pre-recorded interviews of 3 women who worked on Elemental, and we're starting at the back of our filmmaking pipeline and moving towards its beginning. The software engineering team makes the final pixels in our films. And Meghana, who's here tonight, has pre-recorded a video where she also shares the questions that we've asked each of the panelists. We asked them 5 questions. So you'll hear from Meghana here, but she's part of the software engineering team. They make the beautiful film pixels that are clean and pristine. And this is her interview. And thank you, Grace, for pulling it up.
Hi, my name is Meghana Seshadri, and I'm here to answer a series of questions for the Scientific Adventure for Girls STEAM Night. So let's get started. The first question is, what's your name, the place you grew up, and what was your favorite subject? So my name is Meghana. I grew up in the South Bay Area, good old San Jose, California. My favorite subjects while I was in school changed a few times, actually. I always liked math. I think because I knew there was always a correct answer in the end, I just had to find my way to it. But as I went into middle school, I loved being a part of the yearbook committee. I also took an awesome computer class elective where I learned to record and edit my own films for the first time. And I think this is where I finally began to realize that doing some form of art on the computer was what I wanted to do when I grew up. Next question. What do you do now, and what got you interested in that job? Now at Pixar, I'm officially a software engineer, but I think pixel generator is a much cooler name. But what are pixels? When you look at a phone or a computer screen or even a theater screen, it's actually made up of a bunch of small colored dots put together, and those are called pixels. In fact, you're looking at me right now through a bunch of pixels on your screen. At Pixar, I specifically work on a really cool technology called RenderMan. It's a tool that's used at Pixar to make every Pixar film. It's a bunch of computer code that takes all of the awesome work that Pixar artists create, puts it all together, and spits out a bunch of colored pixels in the end. You put all of those pixels together and you get a movie. Aside from the cool classes I took growing up, I loved watching movies and TV shows, and every time I would go see a movie in the theater, I would always just reflect on it afterwards. I'd listen to the music again, watch interviews, and even watch behind the scenes videos on YouTube. Eventually, I began reading the credits after films, seeing all of the people it took to make something like that. And that's when I realized that I also wanted to be one of those people, someone behind the camera creating the very thing I was watching. Next question. How do you rely on STEAM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, art, or math, in your daily work? I feel like STEAM is literally my daily work. Working on RenderMan by itself combines all of these areas. It's a piece of technology that's made up of a bunch of science and math and computer code that is created by engineers and used by artists. Next question. What is a memorable moment from working on Elemental? Well, I don't want to spoil the movie for anyone who hasn't watched it here, but I really hope that's not the case and that you've all seen it. But there's a scene in the movie where the main character, Ember, is walking back home in the evening underneath the train platform. Since Ember is a fire character, she reflects a lot of light around her, to the point that sometimes she would shine so brightly that you couldn't properly see her, like her hands and her feet, nor her shadow and reflections on the ground. And this was a tricky challenge that Pixar artists had to solve. I helped them by adding specific code and controls in RenderMan that they could use to solve this. Next question. What's the Vivisteria flower that you are still reaching for in your journey? What's the big goal in your current career? Honestly, I think I'm still figuring this out. When I was in school, my Vivisteria flower was seeing my name in the film credits one day. And several years ago, when that day finally came, I was on the street walking to a restaurant when I got the message and I screamed and jumped up for joy. But then I also realized, oh my gosh, what's next? And I think my next big goal is to be on a real live film set one day.
Nice work, Meghana.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meghana.
Next, we're going to hear from Jasmine, a visual effects artist and technical director who brought so many of the mesmerizing sparkles, splashes, and sparks to life in Elemental.
Howdy, my name is Jasmine Derry, and I'm an effects artist here at Pixar. My name is Jasmine Derry, and I grew up in a small town called Mesquite, Texas, which is actually east of Dallas, Texas, if you've heard of it. My favorite subject growing up was definitely reading. I was a really big reader as a kid, and I just loved reading books any chance that I could get. The bigger, the better. I'm an effects artist at Pixar, and essentially what that is creating a lot of the cool stuff like explosions and rain and magic coming out of a magic wand. All of those are things that I do every single day, and I get to make really cool movies with it. I originally got interested in special effects artists when I saw this really cool movie, Brave. And whenever I got out of the movie, I remember thinking about all of the tiny little details, like the wind blowing through Meredith's hair, or the magic will-o'-the-wisps that were in the forest, or all of the blades of grass that were moving. Those were all such small details, but I thought they were really, really cool. And that was kind of the stuff that I wanted to work on if I wanted to be making movies. I actually use Steam every day as an effects artist. As an effects artist, I get to be creative and kind of use my imagination to decide on how I want a special effect to look like. But I also use a lot of coding. There's a good amount of computer science involved in effects. And also, something that I think is really interesting is there's also physics involved in effects. So things like, what color does a fire turn when it burns really bright? Or how does rain look whenever it's cold outside versus hot outside? Things like that are things that I have to consider while I'm making the special effects, because we want it to look very believable. But sometimes we want it to look magical too, which is where the creativity comes in. One of the most memorable moments from working on Elemental was working on the coal nut crushing scene. I don't know if you remember, but it's the scene where Bernie and Ember are crushing these logs into these super tiny pieces of coal. And they were just doing it over and over and over again. I remember I really enjoyed working on that because I thought that the fire was cool, seeing it transfer from their hands into the coal and burning it up. Working on that was just a really fun challenge for me. And seeing it on the big screen was really satisfying too, with all the other departments working on it, with lighting, making it look cool, and the special effects in there from the crunching. It was a really fun experience for me. The Vivisteria flower that I'm still reaching for in my journey is, I think, becoming a lead effects artist. A lead effects artist is something that's a little bit different, where you get to work with other departments and you also get to help out other effects artists. Whenever I first came to Pixar, I was brand new to the company and I needed a lot of help and support from my coworkers. And I would love to turn around and get to help other effects artists as I grow and get further along in my career. So being a lead effects artist just means that you get to make even cooler stuff. You get to control a little bit more about how the effects look like, and you get to work on movies for even longer. So all of those things really interest me. And that's kind of the Vivisteria flower that I'm really reaching for. And hopefully I'll be able to achieve soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Now we're going to hear from Athena, an artist, technical director, and shading lead, kind of like Jasmine was talking about being a lead. So Athena has gotten to that place. She's a shading lead in our characters department, and she focuses on how our characters and our environments look. We'll learn more from her.
Hello, everybody. My name is Athena Xenakis. I'm very excited to be here and talk to you guys tonight. Where I grew up is in New York. I've been in California for many years, but a proud New Yorker. My favorite subject growing up when I was a kid was art and music and science. I loved so many subjects, but all of those things really appealed to me. I even wanted to be an astronaut when I was a little kid, but art and music also drew me in when I was little. Now I am a shading technical director, a supervising technical director at Pixar. And what I get to do is work with artists, create myself, and also collaborate with other artists in making a lot of the way the character looks and sometimes how the environment looks. So how it works is when we get projects like this, Ember and Wade come out looking like plastic. They don't look appealing at all. They look sort of like plasticky plain things in computer graphics. And what material shading artists do is make fire and glow and water and hair and skin and plants and robots. We take anything that's plastic, that's part of the default of what you get in computer graphics, and make it rich and vibrant and immersive for storytelling. I love doing this job. How do I rely on STEAM in my daily work? Well, science, technology, and art and math are all part of what I do. The way we create these looks for the characters are actually simulations for Ember and Wade, which are sort of mathematical equations we're running. But in the end, we really just want beautiful, immersive things for people to watch and get into the story. So in my world, I'm looking at art and color of the blue colors on Wade and looking at his eyes. And when I worked on his eyes, I ran some numbers to kind of look into how the water colors and simulations inside of his eyes were moving. And so we set some numbers and we ran some equations and ran some simulations. But in the end, we're working with the artists and the art department and the director, Pete Sohn, to say, how does that feel? How do his eyes feel, and how is it drawing you into the story? So for me, looking at the art and talking to the director and the storytellers, and then talking to Renderman and the scientists is what I do almost every day to kind of combine those two worlds. What is my memorable moment working on Elemental? Well, one of my favorite characters that I got to spend a lot of time with was Lutz. He's one of the air characters, one of the little yellow cloud puff characters from the Air Stadium, if you remember that sequence where they're zooming through. And these characters were so fun because clouds, of course, come out pretty white and plain. And so when we were creating them, we wanted these bright cotton candy colors. We really wanted them to feel like magical cotton candy that could puff apart and come back together. So there was a great time collaborating with lighting and the character effects department to kind of create these trails as they zoom through the stadium, so you kind of catch that motion, but also all of these different kind of cotton candy colors to create the material shading for those guys. Vivisteria flower. So this last question is about my journey. I've been so lucky to be at Pixar for many years and go to movie premieres and see my name and collaborate with many directors and artists. So for me, right now, my Vivisteria flower is bringing the story to new young people. Anytime a little kid discovers an old Pixar movie like WALL-E or Brave or even Coco, and they come and they find a new favorite character with something that I worked on, that's really my Vivisteria flower, is when I can bring the story to new kids and kind of see them get excited about projects from many years ago. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Athena. Your journey is so inspiring. Now that we've seen all of the interviews, we were just wondering if you have any questions for us. Feel free to add your questions for the Pixar panelists into the chat. And while you're doing that, we just want to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists for taking the time to answer your burning questions.
Burning questions. That's a good one. Oh, so you might have noticed that Pixar's Elemental is full of characters that are also visual effects. So it was one of the hardest movies that Pixar has made to date because every effect is really hard to do. And think of if you have to design that effect and make it directable so that it's a character that's walking and talking is really, really challenging. Let's look in the chat and see what questions are coming up. What's your favorite movie you have worked on? You know, my favorite is a series that hasn't even come out yet, but at the end of this year, you'll get to watch it if you're a Disney Plus subscriber. And Holly and I got to work on it. It's really, really good. It's called Win or Lose. I can't tell you anything else, but it's my favorite. Megan, Grace, Holly.
Does anybody know how people made up the names? There was a question about how do people make up names for the characters?
That comes from the writer and the director usually. They are brainstorming, and sometimes the story team, they have a brainstorm about what this character means. And usually they try to infuse the character's name with significance that speak to the character. And I think that's true for the whole cast of Elemental. What else is out there?
We have, how do you make it look so realistic from somebody? I know that's a whole lot of, yeah, it's a big one. It's a lot of work.
The big part of Athena's job is, and sometimes we're not always striving for realistic. Sometimes we're striving for something that's just believable is a better way to say it, so that it doesn't distract you from the fact that you're watching an animated movie. You don't want to look at something and say, oh, that's real or that's not real. You want to look at it and say, wow, that's mesmerizing. But weigh in, Megan, Grace, Holly, if you have better answers.
No, I'll just add that every film has a different look to it, and there are so many people who work together to figure out what that look is for the movie, and then everybody else just works together to make that happen, whether it looks real or in a specific style. You know, that's determined pretty early on, and it kind of changes over time if it needs to, if it helps the story. But how we make that happen happens in so many different areas, whether it's in the technology part, like what my team works on, or in the more artistic teams when they figure out, you know, what color should the characters be.
I'll just chime in too that you can Google what is a production designer and what is an art director, because those people are taking the vision that the director has and making it into art in the very early stages of production. And then this whole big team of people tries to make that artwork come alive in the movie.
I see a question from Alexandra that says, what schooling or training did you do? And we all, I think, have different paths to Pixar. That's one of my favorite things about convening with the other women that are in Pixar Women in Technology, because we all got here different ways. I was a theater major, and I also majored in rhetoric, which is like the science of persuasion and argumentation. So those don't necessarily connect to animation production at all, but that's what I do now. What about you all?
I can go next. I'm Canadian, so I went to school in Canada and I studied engineering and then specialized in robotics. So I had taken a handful of computer science courses throughout my undergrad and just fell in love with computer graphics and then found my way to Pixar.
I'm not Canadian, but I have a similar path to Grace, where I did computer science and then specialized in computer graphics afterwards. And so that's kind of where I learned a lot of the physics and math behind all of the art here.
I'll just chime in what I said in the chat, which is when I was in school, they didn't have all these awesome animation programs that they have now, but I studied architecture because I loved building things, and then I loved journalism and storytelling. So Pixar was just this wonderful cross-section of those two realms that I really enjoyed as a kid.
How neat. And so you did a lot of your learning how to do this once you got hired here. You had to get familiar with, and that is really the case with most employees because Pixar creates so much software that it uses all by itself. It has proprietary software that we use in-house only, and it's all on the job learning. So sometimes you just have to be the right person for the job, and the rest of the skills will come once you're here.
I think that's such a great note that so much of the job is being willing to learn because you're in a constant state of change because technology is constantly changing around you, and learning and finding good teachers, knowing how to ask good questions, being curious, all of that really pays off. You don't come to any job knowing everything. You just have to be willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was mentioned a second ago, but could you repeat again how long it takes typically to make movies? I'm seeing a few other folks curious about that because I think it's hard for us to wrap our heads around just how long it takes.
Yeah. And I see Razia also asks, is it hard or easy? It takes anywhere from 3 years on the very short side to 7 years to make a movie at Pixar. And that's from the first idea that's pitched in our creative development department all the way until the film is released. So it can be a really long time. And Elemental was more closer to the 7 year span of time. It was just an idea, a labor of love over a lot of time. And I would say that it's difficult. It doesn't always have to be difficult, but we like to make it challenging. Anything to add, co-panelists?
I think just to echo what you're saying, Emily, is that I feel like each film we become more and more ambitious where like the technology advances, but so does our expectation and our excitement over what we can create. So you can just think of different films like Lightyear, where we're trying to do something realistic and more sci-fi oriented. And then you can think of a film like Turning Red, which is very stylized in a completely different setting with different characters. So I think just adapting to all those different situations can be really challenging and fun.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we like to say about what we do is that the art challenges the technology and the technology pushes the art. And so as technology gets more and more complicated, it opens our eyes to what we can do in the art world. And all of the art that we want to create is a new way of testing out new technologies. So they're always dancing together. And we, like Holly is saying, like to do the learning along with the movie making so that we're getting better at what we do and hopefully doing it more affordably and more economically and at a higher level of creativity and imagination each time we do it. Do we have time for more questions, Joe? How are we doing?
I think we have to move along, but keep putting your questions in because we might have moments when more can be answered. So just keep popping in your questions if you are curious about.
Yeah. And we can also answer questions in the chat. We'll just type them as we have a break here.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. That's great. Okay, cool. So thank you so much. Megan, go ahead if you wanted to carry us to the next. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for all of these awesome questions. And I hope you all enjoyed learning a little bit of what it's like to use science and technology and to make all of the amazing animated art that we do here at Pixar. And now it's actually time for our first hands-on activity of the night. So everyone grab your STEAM kit and take out the materials for the Crystal Garden project. If you don't have a kit tonight, no worries. The supply list should have made it to you either via email or in the chat here where the lists were shared. All you need is water, salt, a little mini cup, and some optional food dye, not required. Miss Jo here, a teacher at Scientific Adventures, will be leading this activity for us. And so take it away, Miss Jo.
Thank you so much, Megan. Hi, everybody. I hope we're excited to do a little science. And thank you again to our Pixar guest. It's so amazing to learn about all those details of the big process of movie making is so amazing. And those movies are so amazing. Some of my favorite stuff that exists. So cool. Okay, so for the activity. So tonight we'll be playing with chemistry to create 2 miniature crystal gardens, or 1. You don't have to make 2, but I'll be making 2 little ones. And if you got a STEAM kit, you have 2 cups in there. And they're inspired by that crystal scene in Elemental, which you got to watch just a few minutes ago. So all that you're going to need is about 2 tablespoons of salt, your food dye tubes and pipette from your kit, if you've got those, or just food dye from your kitchen, which again is optional, not necessary. And then something to stir with. I have a little stir stick, and then enough water to fill your little cups or your little bowl or whatever you're going to be using. So before we jump into the hands-on part, we're going to talk about chemistry. So I wonder if anybody in the chat can tell me, what is the periodic table of elements? Has anybody seen this before, or is familiar with what the periodic table of elements is all about? I have a big hint for you, which is that it's behind me here on this screen. And cool, we have some folks who are familiar. Yep, behind me, fabulous, somebody saw it, great. So the periodic table of elements is this big, wonderful list of all of the elements found on the planet. So this is a vocab word for tonight, elements for elemental. And elements are the purest form of all the chemical substances on the planet. So some famous elements include oxygen or carbon or maybe sodium. And they're written in shorthand. As you can see, none of these things say oxygen all written out, but oxygen is the O, which is right over there. So they're in shorthand, so they're easier to write when scientists are working with lots of them at once. But an important fact to know about the elements is that very rarely do we come into contact with elements just by themselves in nature. So more often, elements, which are very pure versions of the substance, will combine to form compounds. So compounds are combinations of elements that then make a whole new substance, which is going to behave very differently and do very different things for us than an element by itself. So taking a look at the materials in front of you tonight, I wonder if anybody could guess if what we have here, we have our water, we have our salt, are these elements or are these compounds? I want to see your guesses in the chat. We got elements, we got compounds here. Let's see, water and salt, elements, or elements, okay. Compound, okay, yes. Yeah, so this kind of going over that difference again between elements and compounds. So elements are like pure just by themselves, and then compounds are more likely to be what we find out in nature. Elements are very rarely found in nature. They have to be like separated out by scientists. So you actually have compounds here in front of you. And does anybody know what the compound, the elemental form of water, how that's written? Does anybody know what that is? Maybe that's one that we're familiar with. There we go. Yeah, H2O. So H2O, which means we got 2 hydrogens plus 1 oxygen. So it's a combination of elements forming the compound of water, which is one of the most important compounds on planet Earth, as we all know. And when I mentioned before how elements behave differently from the compounds that they mix together to make. So hydrogen is a gas and oxygen is a gas, and there's lots of those in our atmosphere, but when they come together at the right temperature, they form liquid water. So really different from the original elements. Okay, now it's time for salt. So we've got our salt here. Oh, does anybody know one of the elements that goes into table salt? Oh, we got a periodic table enthusiast. Oh yeah, awesome. I'm seeing sodium in the chat. That's right. So when we see like on a nutritional label sheet, we're talking about how much salt is in some food, then sodium is the one that we're going to be thinking of, even though it's not pure sodium that we're looking at, because pure sodium, in fact, if you touch it with your bare skin, could actually burn you. It's not a very stable element. It needs to be combined with something else in order to make table salt that we know and love. So we've got table salt is NaCl. Does anybody know the 2 elements that combine to make table salt? I know we got sodium is one. And then what is our other one? We got NaCl. Any guesses for that Cl? Yeah, we got chlorine. So table salt is sodium plus chlorine or chloride. Sodium chloride is that scientific name of salt. Okay, amazing. So there is a catch, however, which is that we have a couple different compounds of salt that we're working with tonight. One of them has a little E on the back. So tell me in the chat if you got an E in the mail, if you have your science kit. And this is actually a kind of a funny trick about chemistry, is that most salts that chemists use, awesome, we got some E's in the chat, amazing. So this is a salt that you cannot eat. Please don't eat this one. The table salt ones are fine. That's just like regular salt from your kitchen. But if you have the E bag, this is Epsom salt. If you've ever taken a bath with bath salts, it was probably Epsom salts. And that's a totally different chemical compound. So even though it looks really similar to table salt, it's totally different. And it is MgSO4. This one is a little bit complicated. So MgSO4 is a magnesium plus a sulfur plus 4 oxygens. And this is when we're getting into the territory of slightly more complex compounds, which you'll see scientists working with. So please don't eat your Epsom salts, but they're going to make some beautiful crystals for you. So that's exciting. Okay, activity. Let's see, what we're gonna do, all we have to do is super simple. We're just going to throw our salt. So about, if you have 2 containers, then put half of the salt into one and then half in the other. And then we're just gonna stir it up. And it seems like a ridiculous amount of salt, I know, but that's actually the point, is we wanna saturate it. Saturating some things, I'm gonna have guesses for what it means for something to be saturated. And I'm stirring now. So make sure you're stirring. It's gonna take a lot of stirring to get this salt to dissolve. Okay, let us know how it's going. We got stirring happening. And then the other thing, the only other thing we're going to put in here to make our crystal garden is just whatever colors we want. So we all have red and blue in our kits if we had that. So the water, you want about the same amount of water as salt that you have. So if you're going to make a bigger crystal garden, if you're using more, the Epsom can be scented. That's totally fine. You're just going to have scented crystals, which is fun. So you can get, just make sure you have, just about the same amount of water as salt, because you want it to be, so I only have a little bit of water because I'm using a small container, but if your container is bigger, you're going to want to fill it up. But you just, what the idea is, just about the same amount of water as salt, because we're trying to saturate it, which means we have as much water as we have salt going together. So that then when it evaporates, can anybody tell me what it means to evaporate? It does not have to be Epsom salt either. It can be table salt. They'll both totally work for the activity. Does anybody know what evaporation is? That's going to be the next step in our process here. Evaporation. So evaporation is when, I'm going to get one guess for evaporation while we go. Yeah, liquid to gas. Awesome. Thank you, Gladys. So liquid to gas. So what's going to happen with our little crystal garden here, and you should add whatever colors you want. We have red and blue to go with our theme, but you can do whatever you want, and make sure you just leave a little bit for our next activity. You can use a lot in here though. I have a whole bunch that I just put in here. And the previous steps, all that we did was just dissolve the salt into the water. So a whole bunch of salt went in there. And then it doesn't have to be an exact amount. And this is also being recorded. So if you want to follow up another time, it'll be on YouTube really shortly. We'll send out the link to everybody. Okay, so this is going to take a little while for this to form, and it's going to take probably about a week for the evaporation to happen. But once it does, the water is going to go away, and then you're just going to be left with the salt. It's going to be left behind in the cup, and then you're going to have a wonderful crystal garden. Okay, let's see. All right, cool. Enjoy those crystal gardens.
Thank you so much, Miss Jo. If the activity went by a little too quickly for you, don't worry. Just like she was saying, the webinar will be on Scientific Adventures for Girls YouTube within the next few weeks. And next, I would like to introduce our next activity, Fireworks in a Jar. So grab your supplies and get ready to use science to make something beautiful. If you have any questions while we're doing the activity, go ahead and continue putting those into the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, so I saw somebody had a question of if the salt doesn't all dissolve, is that okay? Yes, that's totally fine. It actually means that your water's absorbed so much salt that it's saturated and you're good. So that's totally fine. Okay, our next and last activity, fireworks in a jar. No actual fire involved here, just oil, water, and food dye. Okay, we're gonna use some really basic, simple chemistry concepts once again to make something, a little tiny show in a cup, which is pretty fun. So to start, just get out your little container of oil if you have your kit, or if you have some in like a bowl or a cup from your kitchen. So any kind of cooking oil should work fine. I have vegetable oil here, but olive oil should be fine as well. And you can use your pipette if you want to be squeezing the food dye. That's kind of just a fun addition. You don't really need it, but it's kind of fun and sciencey, so we included that. And I'm just going to use this to just do my drops carefully. So with this one, you don't want to overdo it with the dye, because if there's too much dye that goes in, then it's going to break apart and before it hits the water, and then we won't have the same fireworks show that we want. So I'm just going to really carefully drop about 3 drops of my red. So let's do this. Oh no. Okay, I did what I didn't want it to do, but that's okay. Might have a little extra. And then that's why the pipette comes in handy if you've got it. And then the next Got my blue. Oh, and then, okay. The next step is to just break apart using your stir stick or whatever you've got. If you have a fork or a spoon, that works great too. To just kind of gently break apart these bubbles of oil. So breaking it apart. Okay, so I don't know if you can all see that, but they kind of is just slowly turning into teeny little dots of oil or of dye getting coated in the oil. But you don't want to overmix because you don't want those droplets to break too soon before they do our little reaction. So does anyone have some guesses for when we pour this on top of our cup of water? Because you should also have a cup of water. I hope I mentioned that. So go grab one now if you haven't already. What do we think is going to happen when we pour this water? If anyone's ever done oil and water before. And we'll put the oil in a little bit, but not quite. Yeah, they're going to be separate, right? Because oil is hydrophobic, which was our vocab word from our Valentine's Science Night, if anybody was there for that, which means it's water fearing or it doesn't want to mix with water. And it's also important to know that oil has a different density than water does. And density is about how heavy something is in relation to its size. So a tablespoon of oil is going to weigh less than a tablespoon of water, which means that the oil can just really easily float up on top of the water. So what we're going to do once you have your oil nice with little tiny dots all broken up is nice and slow, because you don't want it to happen too quick, is you're going to just gently pour your oil onto the water and let it do its thing. And it'll take a little bit of time for it to slowly dissolve in, but eventually you're going to get some little fireworks. Oh my gosh, there we go. You can kind of just watch it go down. And then we've got our fireworks in a jar. Okay. Awesome. And just like elemental, right, we have this idea certain groups are not supposed to mix, oil and water, not supposed to mix, but when we put them together, some amazing things can happen. So let's see, how did everybody do? Also, please let us know in the chat if it worked, if you've got it going on. It's super easy one to try again too if you have more oil and water. And so I hope folks are enjoying that. Okay, so we're going to launch into our final poll right before we're going to announce the raffle prize winners. So adults, just help us out one more time by answering for your family or your household. And so you'll have 2 minutes to answer that as best as you can, then press submit. So we've been working hard all year to make these events happen. So again, thank you so much for your feedback. It helps us improve these events, know who's tuning in so we can make it more tailored for all of you. So thank you in advance again. And thank you for all your participation this evening.
And while people are doing that, I want you to marinate on what is your favorite element. If we're thinking about the movie, you might think of the elements of the earth like fire, water, wind, earth, but there's also the periodic table that is the background of Miss Jo's Zoom screen. And if you can think of your favorite element, put that in the chat too. And I have to admit, as an alumnus of UC Berkeley, my favorite is Berkeleyum or Californium, but both of those were discovered by students who went to UC Berkeley.
I love iron, extremely versatile element, super useful out there. Also gold, another element, big fan.
Yes, gold. I see fire, water and earth. Gold, I know is AU.
Ooh, potassium, that's a really good one. Potassium is good stuff.
Niobeam. That's cool.
Oh, mercury.
I've heard of that one.
Mercury is fascinating.
Potassium, that's in bananas, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mercury, that's in thermometers.
Oh, somebody's an oxygen lover. I really appreciate that. So important, oxygen.
Lava, really cute.
Amazing.
Lava is a great element.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much, everybody.
Einsteinium, cool answer.
I think.
Helium, oh, that's fun. Where would we be without helium on birthday parties?
Okay. Ooh, freezing the fireworks. Oh, I love that idea. Kelly is freezing the fireworks. That is brilliant. Let us know what happens.
Thinking, Riley.
Okay, we'll go ahead and end the poll. Thank you so much for participating. And Giselle can get the wheel of names going. So we're going to do the raffle prizes now. So sorry, go ahead, Emily.
Oh, goody. Okay, so here comes the raffle prizes. I get to announce the person who wins?
Yeah, you should, yes, please. I would love you.
Round and round it goes. Look at all of these wonderful participants. It looks like Susie's stuff.
Oh, wait. I don't know. Wait, I think we should roll again because Susie, I think, is one of our somebody who's working for us. So I think she will get some
No inside jobs. Okay.
Yeah.
No privileges. Regina Coffee. Ooh, congratulations.
And winners, go ahead and let us know the best email to reach you in the chat.
Oh, Gladys Hernandez.
The last one. Shannon.
Shannon McClellans. Woohoo!
So please do send us a message in the chat letting us know your email, the best place to reach you. We'll follow up and then we'll mail out those prizes shortly. So thank you so much. Congratulations to all those winners. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And shout out to women at Pixar and PIX-WIT for collaborating to put on this wonderful evening of learning with us at Scientific Adventures. So feel free to check us all out on our social media pages. The Scientific Adventures ones are right on there on that lovely slide. And enjoy the beginnings of springtime. So we'll be back next school year with more virtual family STEAM nights. But in the meantime, we have a big in-person family STEAM extravaganza coming up on June 15th, which is a Saturday. So that's going to be a daytime event happening in Berkeley, right at our office building. So there's going to be dozens of hands-on science activities, free pizza, and another raffle. So stay tuned for more details. We'll definitely be letting folks know about that as more comes about. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll stay on for a few extra minutes to answer any additional questions in the chat, and have a really great rest of your night. Thank you so much for being here. Awesome. Way to go, everybody. See you later. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming, everyone.
All right. Oh, there's Cloud.
What a joy.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Gladys, for your email. Awesome. Okay. Gladys are coming through. Yay. Oh, yes. Susie, that's June 15th is the big event happening. Awesome. I'm so happy everybody had fun. Yay.
Yay.
We had such a blast. Yay. All right. And remember that this will be recorded and put on YouTube really soon. So if you missed any part of the event or want to go back and watch another part again, you can go ahead and find that link in a couple weeks. We're going to email it out to everybody who is registered, so you'll be able to access.
And Miss June,
so glad the fireworks worked well. Yeah.
Someone asked how long it takes the crystal garden to form. It's several days, right?
Just, yeah, it kind of depends on like the temperature in your house. Mine took like from between like 5 and 7 days. I did a few testers. Oh, does anyone want to see a preview? These are my crystal gardens.
Cool. Pretty cool.
Oh, Stephanie's bunny says bye. That's adorable. So awesome. All right.
Hi, Logan. Hi, Riley. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for tuning in.
And then Giselle, I don't know if you're still here, but you should hop off to your show. I know you have a show. All right. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.
People really hang out. That's cool. Awesome. Milo, have fun with your crystal garden. I'm so happy you were here. Good night.
Good night and goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Have a great spring break. All that good stuff. Get in the sunshine. Oh, Shannon. If Shannon is still on, I don't know if we got her email address, but we can find it. We'll track it down. But yeah, I guess we could Giselle, if you wanna okay. Thank you, Shannon. Great.
Woohoo.
Make sure.
Get that prize. And then tell us what it is.
Yeah, yeah, we got different science kits going out, so that'll be exciting. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your night.
Good night.